Lemos for onlinechesslessons.net. In this video, I'm going to analyze a game between Grandmaster Kasparov against Grandmaster Petrosian, and we'll see a nice positional battle. So let's start. Kasparov plays white, and Petrosian plays black. Okay, d4, knight f6, white plays c4, controlling the center, and black plays e6. This is a very flexible move order, of course. Black will have the chance of playing bishop b4, for instance, maybe b6, or he can also play in the Queen's Gambit style by playing d5. For instance, if white plays knight c3, then black has the option of playing bishop b4, and this is the Nimzo-Indian defense. If white plays knight f3, which is what white played in this game, black can play b6, which is the Queen's Indian. If he plays bishop b4 check, this is the Bogo-Indian, or he can also play d5, and this is the Queen's Gambit. So that is why this is a very flexible move order. White plays knight to f3. White is stopping the Nimzo-Indian, but black plays bishop b4 check anyway, and this is called the Bogo-Indian. It's quite similar to the Nimzo-Indian, but there are some differences, as you'll see. White is not playing knight c3. If he does, black may consider taking on c3, and doesn't have to take right now, but he's destroying our pawn structure, and that is black's idea in the Nimzo. But by playing knight f3 here, white doesn't have to play knight c3. He can also play bishop d2, and by playing this, he's protecting his pawn structure. Black cannot destroy the pawn structure now. So after bishop d2, black plays queen e7. And yeah, this is an interesting try. As white, we cannot take on b4 now, because after queen take, he's going to win a pawn. If we defend the c4 pawn, he's going to take on b2. And if we cover the check with queen d2, he's going to just take on c4. So that is why, yeah, queen e7, it's defending the bishop. But yeah, obviously it's white we are not going to take. We're going to play c3. As you'll see, the bishop is coming to the long diagonal, and there is a difference between playing c3 and maybe e3. If we play e3 as white, it's going to be okay. We're going to control the center a bit, but it's not that aggressive, right? If we play c3, our bishop, it's going to have more future in this diagonal, right? And this reminds me of the Catalan opening. And again, we have to understand that the bishop in this diagonal is going to make much more pressure. So after c3, black takes on, and here white takes with the queen. Interesting. Looks more natural to take with the knight, and we also control the e4 square. But if we take with the queen, it makes sense too, because the natural square for the knight it's c3. From c3, the knight is controlling not only e4 but squares at queenside too, and d5. So that is why white takes with the queen here, so we can play knight c3 later. So after queen takes d2, black castles, white plays bishop to c2, and black plays d5. Usually in this kind of setups, after getting rid of this bishop, we can see that the bishop on c8, it's like a tall pawn, right? This bishop it's crashing into black's pawns, and it's not a good bishop. Usually black tries playing d6 and e5, so he places his pawns in dark squares, and then this bishop on c8, it's a good bishop. But when he plays d5 here, he's controlling the center more. But again, this bishop becomes like a tall pawn. It's not a great bishop. Whereas our bishop, it's great. Has a nice diagonal here. So d5, white castles, and here black decides to take on c4. And this is, a big decision. Again, this bishop is playing, and looks like white is going to take this pawn back soon. On the other hand, if black plays c6, b6, bishop b7, knight d7, which looks like a solid setup, again, this bishop, it's a problem. Although this is solid as well, maybe black can fight for the equality here. I mean, I think white still better, but black is solid. Maybe we can play something like rook c1 as white to put pressure before black plays b6 and bishop b7. It's important to get the initiative as soon as possible, right? And maybe this knight we can decide whether a3 or c3. But what I mean is, looks like white's advantage, it's a nice advantage. Maybe it's not that big, but it's good to fight for the advantage risk-free. I mean, as white, I don't see any risk right here. But when black plays d takes c4, this diagonal, it's open, and white plays knight to a3. We're going to get this pawn back soon. And again, I'm worried about this diagonal. As you'll see in this game, Kasparov shows that a little advantage, sometimes it's more than enough. So after knight a3, black pushes c5. And here white, well, this is playable. I guess after knight takes c4, black wanted to play rook d8, which makes sense. But white plays d takes c5. And after queen takes, rook ac1. Again, this pawn is falling soon, and black cannot protect it. And by the way, he cannot win any tempo by playing something like rook d8. This would be very helpful for black, but he cannot. So he plays knight c6, knight takes c4, and here maybe comes black's mistake in this game. At first sight, looks like queen e7 is not a big mistake. Actually looks like a very solid move. But as you'll see, it's a bit passive, and black is already down in development. Maybe he should try something like rook d8. But when we move our queen, then we'll have same threats, such as knight c5, attacking the queen, attacking the knight on c6. And this bishop will have problems to develop. I mean, black will find equality if he develops this bishop on c8 somehow. Maybe something like bishop d7 and bishop to e8. But as you'll see in this game, black couldn't develop this bishop at all. So that was the problem. After queen e7, here white plays a very nice move, which is knight f to e5, clearing this diagonal and attacking the knight on c6. And black takes. What happens if he plays bishop d7, for instance? Looks like a nice try, because black says, I'm getting rid of my bad bishop, so makes sense to trade this bishop off. But here white is glad to take the bishop. After all, it's a bishop, right? I mean, we love the bishop pair, especially in open positions, and this bishop won't have a challenger. So queen takes, knight takes. Here, by playing the simple knight d6, we attack b7, we attack the knight on c6. I don't see any possible move for black to defend both. So after getting the extra pawn, the endgame should be easy for white, especially with the bishop, right? So that is why black cannot play bishop d7. He has to play knight takes e5, knight takes, and now black plays knight to d5. Yeah, when he plays knight d5 here, well, looks like he wants to give a pawn. But first of all, we have to understand that basically black can retake, and despite losing the pawn, then the bishop is going out, and there's no need to activate the bishop like this. And on the other hand, apart from taking, he can also play rook d8. And then he's going to take his piece back, and maybe he's not losing any pawn, so then he'll have the bishop against the knight. It's not clear whether we have an advantage here or not. I mean, the thing is, after knight d5, we have to keep developing. All the pieces are playing. That's much more important than a single pawn. And I mean, we don't have to give this bishop up. I guess this bishop is putting, a lot of pressure here. And as you'll see, black cannot develop here. If he plays rook d8, we just play e4, and then he loses the rook. If he plays bishop d7, well, for instance, I like knight takes, queen takes, and then after e4, he's losing the piece too. So he cannot develop his bishop. He cannot play rook d8. Again, we see that development-wise at queenside, black is down. So, I mean, a simple move like this is quite strong. Again, there's no need to take material here. So rook fd1, black plays knight to b6, and here comes another great move by white, which is queen a5. Basically, winning more space at queenside. He cannot move any piece, and again, he cannot develop his pieces, right? When he plays something like bishop d7, well, we have a lot of moves, right? Basically, we can take here. We have to consider rook c7 as well. Maybe taking the bishop first and then playing rook c7. A lot of moves for white, actually. So he cannot develop again his pieces at queenside. Black plays here. He plays c6. Well, he wants to make a waiting move here since he cannot move anything at queenside. And white plays rook d3. See how little by little white improves his position. There's no rush here. And after rook d3, black plays knight d5 again. What happens if he plays something like rook d8? Makes sense, trying to trade off some pieces. But then queen c5, it's quite strong. See, we are attacking the queen and the rook. When he plays queen takes c5, we play the in-between takes d8. Queen f8 is the only move. This endgame, it's hopeless for black. The rook enters with great power, and again, the key is he cannot develop his pieces. So that is why here after rook d3, black plays knight d5. And again, I should repeat this. There's no need to take this knight. We would be doing a very big favor to black if we take this knight, because then he's going to take, and he's happy to give this pawn up, but this bishop is going out too. So after knight d5, e4, it's great. We thread the knight. He has to lose a tempo again. And the key is he cannot develop these pieces. So he plays knight b6 again. And now comes a very simple move again, bishop f1. The bishop is not doing much on this diagonal, so now we improve this bishop. And again, he cannot develop his pieces. If he plays something like bishop d7, we have a lot of moves again, like rook c7, taking first, and then rook c7 should work too. So I repeat, I mean, as queenside is frozen, black cannot play much here. So after bishop f1, he plays rook e8. Okay, so after rook e8, rook d1. Well, I guess, yeah, white has a lot of moves here. This should be interesting as well, controlling the d file. Although here when he plays rook d1, in a lot of variations, bishop b5 it's a threat, and I insist, black cannot move at queenside, so if he pushes his pawns or something like this, he's creating weaknesses around his king, and he's playing with these pieces only, so I mean, we should be winning in the long run as white, because he's weakening his king too much. So, I mean, playing these kind of moves when black cannot play anything makes a lot of sense. So after rook d1, he plays rook f8, and here it's very nice how Kasparov makes a progress here. Little by little, he plays a3. As you'll see, this plan is very powerful, not rushing, and then we'll try to threat this knight with a pawn. So a3, king g7, b3, then king g8, a4. See, black is playing the same moves the whole time, and as white, sometimes we don't have to go crazy by playing slowly. We can also win. So here, black decides it's time to play something different, like rook d8. But here, white plays queen c5, and it's hard to believe, but black resigns here. I understand because this looks like the only move, but then we get same endgame we saw before. This variation, it's hopeless for black. Again, his lack of development at queenside, it's clear. I mean, he cannot move this knight either. After a5, he's losing it actually. So if he plays something like queen here, well, we have bishop here, for instance. We have knight g4, a lot of holes around the king. We are entering the 7th rank as well. So, and yeah, if king here, obviously rook he cannot take because the king is here. So after queen c5, again, black resigns here. Looks incredible, but yeah, this is the reason, right? After rook takes again, this endgame is hope. But what we can learn out of this game is that sometimes a little advantage, like when black played queen e7 and we played knight f e5, the advantage doesn't look big, but then the pressure at queenside was very big, and then thanks to that, white improved his position and got this nice win against such a strong player, right, like Petrosian. So I hope you enjoyed this positional battle, and I'll see you in next videos.